Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Ortega. I'm a tutor here at the CIS Sandbox, and today I'm just going to be running through a little bit of precursory knowledge you should know to succeed in CS 213. So allow me to share my screen. Okay. So welcome. So we're going to start off with what is a file and a folder. Some of you may already know this, but it's still good to go over these basics so that everyone has the same understanding. So a file is a single document or item, like a Word document, picture, or video. And a folder is a container that can store files or other folders, which, if there's a folder inside of a folder, that is called a subfolder. Essentially, it helps to organize files on your computer. Think back, I'm sure some of you do have folders with your courses on them. If you were to have one of those with another folder inside, that would be the subfolder. Now, root folder. So a root folder is the topmost directory in a file system. It is where all other folders and files are stored. It's like the trunk of a tree from which all branches, subfolders, extend. Okay, and there's two differences. It's different depending on what operating system you're using. So if you're using Windows, the root folder is usually represented as a C:/. All of you Windows users should be pretty familiar with seeing this. To provide an example of this, I actually just copied the path from my folder. I believe we can actually run through it, so I'll show you how you would read through that. So you see the root folder of the C right at the beginning, then /users. So I'm going into that users folder, and then into the Ethan folder, and then into my OneDrive Bentley University folder. And inside of my Bentley OneDrive and Bentley University folder, there's another subfolder, which is GB320. Inside of that folder, there was a demographic. So this was just a Qualtrics file, right? So there was also another folder inside of there that was titled Demographics Qualtrics Experience Management File. And then that last bit where you see that slash and then all of the numbers.html, that's the actual end file that would appear using that file path, right? So that means if we were writing a little bit of HTML, granted, you wouldn't be the format would be slightly different because you wouldn't be doing it from your C drive, right? Which is what the C colon means. But this path brings you through all of that folder hierarchy and lands you at that final file. But with Mac, it's a little different, right? So we have this slash that's opposite the slash used for Windows. So it would just be that /users/Ethan OneDrive, and this is the same exact destination that you see above. Um, all the files and fold like the same process, same hierarchy, right? What starts at the left most is the top folder, and everything as you move to the right is within that top folder, right? So everything's within my C drive, right? So it goes C drive, users, Ethan, then my OneDrive folder, which is ultimately still under the C drive. Hopefully that makes some sense. But really, the biggest difference between Mac and Windows is just one's coming from a C drive, and then Mac just uses a slash, which, in my opinion, makes it a little harder to see where it begins, but it still works in practice. So, how to access OneDrive? I mean, you just saw how it was accessed, how you would access it through that file directory, right? Um, but within Windows, you're going to use what's called File Explorer, which I believe most of you would be familiar with at this point, and you will see OneDrive on the left-hand side. Um, with Mac, you're going to open Finder and then go to navigate to applications. And then within applications, your OneDrive should be in there. Now, navigating through folders with command lines. Um, so I just want to point out this is going to be for Windows, right? If we're going to use command lines, we're going to use command prompt, which you can access by going to the bottom left corner, clicking that magnifying glass to search, and then typing in CMD. That'll bring up command prompt. So CD is change directory. That's like what the base means. So if you do CD dot dot, that's going to go up one directory, right? So we were talking about the hierarchy system with the colon, yada, yada, yada. So what that means is go up a directory is basically if you were in, let's say, the OneDrive folder, or let's say you were in the GB320 folder, maybe that's the best example, and I want to move up in that directory, I would end up at the OneDrive-Bentley University. That's essentially all that means. Um, So very useful. CD and then folder name. Of course, that folder name would be changed with the folder name you're interested in. We'll move you to that folder. CD path name moves to that path. Now, the reason that you'll see dir highlighted in blue and sorry, the same thing with ls is because those are the only commands that are different between the two out of what you'll need for this class. There's probably differences beyond that, but for what you'll need for this class, the difference lies in that blue highlight there. So to get a list of files in the directory, right? So within that hierarchy portion, if you want a list of them, you'll do dir and then enter when you're in command prompt. And that's the biggest difference between Windows and Mac, right? To do that on Mac, you're going to use, excuse me, you're going to use ls, which is list directory contents. Same exact, it accomplishes the same thing as the dir. But now I'm going to go through the bottom portions because these are, as you can see, shared between both of them. There's no difference in how you would use these, except for the fact that in Mac, you're going to use terminal, right? So the way you would access that on a Mac is you got your top bar. If you go to the magnifying glass there, type in terminal, open that up. That's how you can use these command prompts. So all the CD stuff is going to stay the same, even in the Mac. What we're going to want is, except I should rephrase that. So the folder name and the path names, like I showed you before, are going to be different, right? So you're still going to use those Mac and window rules. However, the command that precedes all of that is the same. So mkdir is directory name, so creates a directory. So you would do mkdir, and then what you would place in the italics of directory name is actually the directory you want the name to be. Hopefully that makes sense. And then if you want to remove a directory, you would do the same thing with rmdir and then the directory name as well. If you want to copy a file, you'll use cp and then you'll see all this. So file 1, file 2, all this is saying is, right, you got to take a copy of something. So then the second one is the output of that copy. So for example, like the first one could be let's say just an Excel file with your grades, but you want to make a copy of it. Your second one would be titled grade. So the first one's titled, grades.xlcx, like a typical Excel file. You would then do file 2 as either file, like you could do grades2 dot, right? But you give it a different name because two files can't have the same name. Continuing on, you can move a file using the commands you see here. Same ideas. A lot of it is relatively similar. Most of it's just knowing what your files are named, right? Because all of this becomes much more challenging if you don't know what your folders are named, the files are, or the structure of the hierarchy, right? If you're not keeping track of like, all right, you have your CS213 folder, and then in that folder you have assignments, maybe participations, like all those different things. Knowing the hierarchy is extremely important, and the hierarchy you should try to make as logical as possible. This was supposed to be with other people here. However, it's just me. So if you have any other questions, feel free to stop by the Sandbox.